What's going on, guys? My name is Steve. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I'm just an American guy on a journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Today, we're going to be reacting to 15 differences between British and American houses. I don't really know what to expect here. As someone who's never been to the UK before, I don't really have a way to compare British and American houses. I believe British houses are probably a little bit smaller than American houses. I also believe that more British people probably live in cities than people in America do, based off of perceptions I just have. I don't know if that's a fact. Another thing that I recently learned was that a lot of British houses have separate hot and cold water taps. I've never actually seen that in America, so that definitely seems to be something that may be included on this list. But otherwise, I have no clue what to expect here. So let's go ahead and check out what the differences are between British and American houses.
Hey guys, I'm Eric.
And Grace. We're the Wandering Ravens.
We're an American couple with a deep love for all things UK. So today we're drinking Yorkshire tea and exploring the differences.
Man, that tea looks really good.
Homes.
Shout out to our friends Jeff and Connie.
Brown, it almost looks like coffee. It's so rich.
Delicious tea. This is a really exciting episode because we've lived in 9 different British houses and dozens of American houses. So we've compiled a rather modest list of differences between British and American homes.
But before we get into
is that a difference? I just noticed that on the video reels they were showing, and I think when I think back to images of the UK, one thing that pops in my head, it seems like a whole lot of houses are brick. In America, there seems to be a lot more wood or, sometimes fake materials, sometimes vinyl siding. I don't know if the UK has as many houses that are wood or vinyl siding type materials on the outside.
those. If learning about how we provincial Yanks live causes you to cackle with glee, then make sure you click subscribe because we release new UK versus USA videos every single Saturday.
Also, make sure you give this video a like to promote it on YouTube, and because if you don't, I will put this tea bag back in my tea.
Okay, the first thing we need to talk about are the differences between the way Brits and Americans talk about the places we live.
In the UK, we would call this a terraced house.
I would call that a townhouse. You guys would call it a terraced house? That makes sense.
But in the United States, we call this...
Why are you Australian?
Am I Australian?
Yeah, you have to sound like you're from the South.
South.
Yeah, it's true.
In the UK, we call this a terraced house.
In the United States, we call this a townhouse. I did it again, didn't I?
Dude does a good Australian accent.
I'll just say it in my normal voice.
Okay, how about that? Up next, we have a semi-detached house.
A duplex.
Which, of course, we would call a duplex or triplex.
In the UK, this is a detached house.
This is a single family home.
And here in good old Yankee land, this is simply a house.
And last but not least, of course, we have a flat.
Which here in America we call an apartment or condominium or condo. And we've heard a lot of people express confusion about the terms apartment and condo. So let's clear that up real quick.
An apartment is where the entire building is owned by one company or one person. And a condominium is where each apartment is owned by a unique individual. And by the way, guys, why are apartments called flats in the UK? I'm sure you guys probably would say the same thing. Why are flats called apartments? But I'm just curious. I honestly don't know why apartments are called apartments or why flats are called flats. So I'm just curious, is there a meaning behind the word flat in regards to the place someone lives?
Basically, an apartment building is where all the units are owned by the same company or person and they're leased out individually. But a condo could be the same thing as an apartment building in look and appearance, except that all of the units are owned individually. From what I understand, in the UK, there is no distinction between those two. It's simply a flat.
Everything is a flat.
Yeah.
Now that we've defined our terms, let's talk about who lives in what. So, kicking things off with the Yanks, 72% of Americans live in houses.
Sounds about right.
20% live in apartments, 5% live in mobile homes or trailers, and 3% live in other accommodations such as RVs, vans, and boats.
Across the pond, the numbers are fairly similar, with a little over 79% of Brits living in houses, 20% living in flats, and less than 1% living in other housing like vans.
Wow. Okay. That's a little bit surprising to me. I was under the perception that that more British people lived in flats or apartments than in houses. I guess it's just because I think of the, cities like London, and I just, I guess you just get that perception in your head. But I guess it makes sense I guess it makes sense because there's a lot of countryside in the UK. So it does make sense that you guys would live in houses. Well, not to mention that, never mind. Anyway, this is interesting. And one thing I noticed is you guys don't seem to have mobile homes, at least on this list. I don't even know. Are there any mobile homes in the UK? Is that even a thing there? I mean, it's definitely a thing in the US, and definitely in the US, there's been a lot more people moving into RVs and whatnot full time. I guess it's very convenient. It's very cheap to do so, and you can just travel around wherever you want to. So it makes sense for some people. I don't know if I'd do it with children though, but.
Vans, RVs, igloos, and old shoes.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. When it comes to houses, the big difference here is that while 61% of Americans live in detached houses, only 24% of Brits live in detached houses.
Wow.
This difference is easy to explain, though, given that American suburbs can basically roll on forever.
Okay, yeah,
and so
that's
there's
true.
a lot more room to build detached houses.
That's true.
Yeah, that was something that really gave us a culture shock when we first arrived in the UK. Was just the rows upon rows of semi-detached or terraced houses. They're really cool, though. They look very nice.
They are. I kind of feel like I would like to live in a terraced house. Terrorist?
A terrorist house?
That's not what I meant.
Now let's roll into our next difference, look at the floor plans, and talk about house size. Something that surprised us was that in the UK, the average house size is 76 square meters, or for our Yankee friends, that's 818 square feet, which is not only smaller than the average American house,
than I would have thought.
But it's also smaller than the average house in Australia, Denmark, France, Spain, and even Ireland.
I think it makes sense because in a lot of areas, kind of like with the what'd you call it? The terraced houses, the attached houses, that's done because the space is more limited. So I guess that it makes sense that the housing size would be smaller on average. In America, it's definitely more spread out, so it's easier for people to build bigger houses. Yeah, it just makes sense.
American houses, on the other hand,
2,000 square feet is what I'm guessing.
Are nearly 3 times larger than British homes, coming in at an average size of 214 square meters or 2,303 square feet.
That's huge! That is a huge house.
Yeah, that is really big.
Now let's talk about flats. The average one-bedroom flat in the UK is 46 square meters, or 495 square feet. While in the USA, the average one-bedroom apartment or condo is 70 square meters.
Yeah, I was thinking something like this because when I lived in a one-bedroom apartment, I don't know, it's been a long time now, but it was around 800 square feet for that one-bedroom apartment.
Or 757 square feet.
Here's another really interesting thing I discovered while doing research for this video. If these numbers that we're shouting off, square footage, size of the house and all that, if those mean nothing to you, don't worry, you're not alone, because a recent study by Barclays Bank found that 57% of Brits don't know the size of their home, don't even know how big their house is, the square meterage or footage, and 25% of Brits don't actually know what a square meter or foot even is.
This makes sense because we have looked for properties in the UK before, homes in the UK, when we're like, what if we immigrated to the UK? We've looked at homes for sale, and it's very rare to have the square meterage listed at all. So you're like, how big is this place? I have
really?
no idea.
This is true because if you're shopping for homes in the States, which whenever we move to a new city, because we do house sitting, whenever we pop up in a new city, we always go on and look at all the real estate to see what housing costs.
Yes, always got square footage.
If you look at a housing website here in the States, it's going to list everything by size. So you can sort by square footage. You can say, I want a minimum of 1,000 square feet, or I want a place between 800 and 1,000 square feet. And most Americans will know the size of their house. So I think this difference between real estate in the UK and the US and listing square footage is probably why most Brits don't know the size of their home. But
yeah, it totally makes sense. If it's not listed when you buy it, I mean, yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. If whenever I've rented a place, if they didn't tell me the square footage, I obviously wouldn't have a clue. I would have to actually go through and, try to measure it myself. And that, really that's difficult if, to go through the process of going with a tape measure into every room. And yeah, or I guess you could go around the entire outside of the house to do so. But either way, that's interesting that the UK doesn't really show the square footage or square meters even.
But if you're British, do let us know. Do you know why British real estate companies don't mention square footage? Because it is very frustrating. That doesn't make sense when we're looking for homes in the UK.
Yeah, that is frustrating.
And we don't know how big this house is. So I'm like, this house only costs £200,000, but I don't know how big it is, so I can't tell if this is a good deal or a terrible deal.
Is it 800 square feet or 2,000 square feet?
Stick huts in the backyard.
It's the shoe. It's the old lady's shoe.
Now let's step through the front door and talk about the next difference between.
That's one more thing I wanted to add to that section was that in America, it's not just the square footage of the house. We also, whether you're renting or buying, they'll list the square footage of the yard or the land that comes with it. So you'll know exactly how big, before you even show up, you'll know exactly how big the house is, and you'll know exactly how big the yard is. And in most cases, even each bedroom has the square footage, so you can actually know right off the bat, will my king size bed and other furniture fit in that bedroom or whatnot. That is one area that is very convenient, and I definitely appreciate here in America. Then I didn't know that wasn't a thing in the UK. I do wonder why that is. Doesn't really make much sense.
British and American homes, which is rooms. So, kicking things off with British homes, the average British house will have a living room, the kitchen, a bathroom or two, a couple of bedrooms, the dining room, and of course, some homes will have the odd conservatory or dungeon.
And we're probably going to get some flack for the way we said that.
Really?
Because we would say conservatory.
But you guys would probably say conservatory?
That's it. Yeah, conservatory. Conservatory.
What is a conservatory? I don't know. That, to me, the idea that I have in my head is a place that you grow plants inside, but I'm guessing that's probably not the case because they're talking about a dungeon too. Is that basically the equivalent of what we would call a basement here? Because we do have basements, and I'm not sure if that's what they mean by that.
I'd love to have one in my future probable home someday.
Which might be a British home if we ever figure out the square footage. Now let's jump across the pond and look at the bog standard American house. The bog standard American house will have all of these rooms that we just listed, except for conservatories and of course dungeons. But the American house will have some rooms that we don't see in the UK very often. These rooms include the laundry room or utility room, the food pantry where you store food, the garage, the basement, and the den or office. So of course, we understand that some British homes, the ones on the larger side, do have
so a conservatory is not the basement.
But we've only seen them in one or two out of the 9
maybe it is the
homes
place where you grow
plants. So far. Now let's talk about house construction.
One thing we noticed while we were in the UK was that most homes seem to be built out of brick or stone, whereas across the pond in the US, most of our houses are built out of wood.
And this is a question we've received from a lot of Brits, both in person and in the comment sections.
That's how the houses so many houses in the UK have been able to withstand being there for hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of years. Whereas in the America, I mean, obviously we have old houses from the 1700s and they're mostly wood and they're still standing. But obviously a house made of stone or brick is going to last much longer.
Why are American homes made out of cheap, flimsy wood?
Would you build your ship out of rocks? That is my question. Would you build it out of rocks? I think not.
Yeah, that's true. Case closed. No, but seriously, wood is cheap, strong, it's renewable, and it also lasts forever. There's, I think the oldest American house that's made out of wood dates all the way back to the 1600s.
Right.
And in the UK, you guys have wooden houses dating back to the 1300s.
Really?
Another misconception that we hear a lot is that American homes are only made from wood. But there is a lot of regional variety. In some places in the States, wood is really rare, and most houses are actually built out of brick and masonry. And in parts of the States
I guess
where
that's
there are
true
wooden
to a certain
houses,
extent.
they're generally a compilation of cinder blocks, bricks, stone, steel, beams,
Yeah, that's
sheetrock.
true.
I
That's
think
true.
the difference here is that throughout the history of the UK, there's been this long history of deforestation, and so lumber hasn't been a plentiful resource. So it just makes sense. Brick and stone houses make sense there. Whereas in the States, we have lumber everywhere, and so it makes sense that houses are made out of wood. So I don't think one is like better than the other.
I think a stone cottage is better than the other.
That makes so much sense. I mean, there's probably obviously less trees that you can use for timber to actually use for wood for houses in the UK for many reasons. But I agree that wood can be, sturdy and can last forever, not forever, but last for a very, very long time. But let's be honest, a stone or brick house is just automatically is going to last longer than a wooden house if you set them side by side and they were cared for the same and people lived in them and it didn't kind of get overgrown or anything. Eventually wood is going to rot at some point. Today you got pressure treated wood, but even still, my guess is that, just look at the buildings. Just look at the 1,000-year-old churches that are in the UK that I've started learning about on this journey. And there's no question to me. You look at these things, they're just beautiful and just standing, looks like the same as when they were first built, basically. And I'm going to guess if you built a church 1,000 years ago, that church, at the very least, that was built out of wood is going to have some issues. But yeah, anyway, that makes a lot of sense.
That's true. I like the stone cottages, but I also like the half-timbered houses, like Tudor houses and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, those look really nice. You don't like Tudor houses?
No, I like them.
I don't know what a Tudor house
I wouldn't
is.
want to live in one. I would want to live in a stone cottage.
All right, now we're going to start talking about some of the fun miscellaneous differences between British and American homes, starting with washing machines.
So it's common for British people to have their washing machines located in their kitchens, which was quite a surprise to us because here in the US, we have a separate room that is dedicated to washing your clothes.
Along a similar vein, 80% of American households have a clothes drying machine, while only 58% of British households do. In the UK, when we house sit, we have to get used to air drying our clothes.
Wow,
And it's always
that's interesting
because the UK is a little bit more damp. I feel like it takes a long time for anything to dry. It'll just stay perpetually wet for days. It makes sense that in the UK, where you guys are more environmentally conscious in general than here in the States, you guys would forego having a drying machine.
Although I would put this in the category of accidentally environmentally friendly. Kind of like the house size. Like it's not intentional, it's more a consequence of size constraints. But it's a positive consequence.
The next difference between...
I would disagree that the average house in the US has a laundry room. I think a slight majority probably do. We don't really have a laundry room. We have our washer and dryer in the basement, which I think a lot of houses here in the US probably do the same because we have a full basement, with a paid floor and or I can't even think of the word I'm trying to think of, but yeah.
Between British and American homes
Cement floor.
is closets. Closets are another feature of the American house. In fact, In standard real estate practice, it's common to not actually list a room as a bedroom unless it has a closet.
Across the pond in the UK, we never saw a bedroom with closet.
Really?
From what I remember, all of the homes we stayed in either had a wardrobe for clothes or they had those fitted wardrobe things that go over the bed.
Wow.
Which at first we thought were really nice. We walked into a room with it and we were like, this looks so great. But the friends we were staying with quickly informed us that it's considered quite tacky and poor taste.
It was news to us. Have you ever seen one of those in the States?
I haven't. Have you?
Me neither. No, I haven't.
Yeah. So you guys let us know, is this poor taste or
Is that poor taste? What do you guys think? Is this poor taste? I think it looks pretty nice, honestly. I mean, this is basically a closet. It's what it serves the purpose. A small closet, but it serves the purpose of a closet to hide away your clothes and stuff. I mean, it's what that is. So, I mean, I think it looks fine. I think it makes total sense for if you're in an area where the houses have to be built smaller. You have to save space where you can, and getting rid of a closet and putting something like this up makes total sense.
Or is this the height of fashion?
Another thing about the closet craze is that it's a huge status thing to have like a walk-in closet. Like if you have a walk-in closet, you're like making it.
Yeah, you need to be able to display your thousands of pairs of shoes and pants and clothes.
I don't do clothes like that, so I don't care either way.
Thousands of pairs of pants!
Yeah, I don't do that.
The next big difference is porches. In the UK, we didn't really see any houses with porches.
Really?
Especially wraparound porches, a feature that is almost ubiquitous in American homes.
Porches are huge here.
Furniture? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Porch swings.
Porch swings are really common.
Instead of having a porch, Brits seem to opt for a backyard patio or garden patio.
Terrace,
and this reminds me of another difference that we noticed. You guys can confirm or deny this for us.
Wait, I wanted to say, like, that's surprising. I would have thought you guys would have had more porches, but here, that is huge. If any house if I build a house in the future myself, is 100% going to have a huge porch. Because I love, sitting some rocking chairs out on the porch, just sit there on a nice summer day, drinking a glass of lemonade, watch the kids play or whatever, watch the sunset. Porches are awesome. But I do like a nice patio or a terrace in a backyard as well. It's a great place to grill and things like that. So, I'll take both. If it was up to me, I'd take both.
But it seems that British people prefer to hang out behind their house rather than in front of it.
That makes sense. You got
Americans,
privacy.
It's a pretty even mix of both.
Yeah.
In the UK, if you go to someone's house, you're always going to be in the garden, never in the front garden bit.
I actually prefer that because it feels more like you are in that person's space. Like, it's more hospitable.
In the garden.
Welcoming.
Look at that. That was beautiful.
As opposed to being in the front.
I don't know where that was, but that was beautiful. Love gardens, love quaint backyard gardens like that.
Jackie's house.
So cool.
The next difference is microwaves. Now, as you guys probably already know, it is very common for pretty much every American household to have a microwave in their kitchen. This is for reheating things like coffee or soup or even, God forbid, tea.
Not just reheating tea, but actually boiling the water for tea.
I've still never done that before.
My family did it growing up.
Really?
I'm
So you'd
ashamed to admit.
stick the water in there and wait for it to boil and then you'd pull it out and put the tea bag in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. But it's really terrible because what it does is it heats up the mug itself. So you have to use a napkin or something to pull it out of the microwave because the whole mug is on fire.
I've literally never done that. I thought when the Brits were making fun of us for doing that wasn't something any Americans did.
No, it's something Americans do. I'd like to say, I'm not throwing my family under the bus, they did eventually get rid of the microwave and now exclusively use an electric kettle.
The next difference is
I want to say that too. As an adult, I have never purchased a microwave. We'll never purchase a microwave. Don't have a microwave. Don't want a microwave. Can't stand microwaves. I personally don't believe they're very good for your, number one, they make food horrible. Heating food in a microwave is absolutely disgusting. And it just makes the food, I don't even know how to explain it. It's been so long since I've had microwavable food. I don't even remember exactly how it turned out, but it just wasn't good. I did grow up with a microwave. I think pretty much all kids in America, for the most part, if you're my age or older. Well, I don't know how to say that, but anyway, most kids grew up with microwaves in their houses in America, and I was glad to not own one once I was an adult and was out on my own.
Is dishwashers. Around 49% of British households have dishwashers in their home, whereas around 68% of American households have dishwashers.
Just like with laundry machines and dryers, this makes a lot of sense. There's a lot less room in a British house, so you're not going to have room for a dishwasher.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But on the plus side, since you have the clothes washing machine in the kitchen already, you can just chuck your tea mug and plates in there. Tumble wash.
Tumble wash.
We have a I love a dishwasher, man. Dishwashers are awesome.
Clean.
Yeah.
Same load.
Awesome. Because I hate doing dishes.
The next difference is what I'm really excited.
I do still do dishes on a regular basis, and my wife does too. We don't really use the dishwasher, but maybe we use the dishwasher to hold for drying of stuff we hand wash. And then maybe once every 10 days, 2 weeks, we'll run a load. If it's like we got a lot of dishes that we have to wash that we don't want to do by hand, we're feeling lazy, or you also want to wash a dishwasher out every once in a while if you've been drying in there because it will get kind of gross, But
about because I haven't seen anyone mention this before, and so this might be an Eric and Grace original. And this difference is hallways. While American homes do have hallways, they're not used quite the same way as they are in the UK. The big difference is that in the UK, when you walk into a house, you almost always walk into a hallway.
Really?
Of the 9 homes that we stayed in, I want to say 8 of those had you walking directly into a hallway rather than into, like we have in the States, into a living room, into a kitchen, or another sort of common area. So what I'm talking about is that in the UK, you have a house. So here's a house, beautiful, beautiful house. And you'll have the front door. Here's the front door. And then when you walk in, you have this hallway. And then very often you have stairs off to one side. So this is an example of a house that we stayed in Leeds. Come in the front door here. If you go through the back,
and you go to the stairs right there.
Bedrooms back here. You go up the stairs to the second floor here if you want. But the thing that really tripped me up, and the thing that I want to ask you guys about, is that here you have this hallway, you have these walls, and then you have a door. And if you walk through here, you walk into the living room. And what really confused me is why this hallway existed. Because it seems to me like if you just knock down these walls, and
you'd have more room in the living room.
You would have a much bigger living room.
You would,
increase by 2 to 3 feet. If you build houses in the UK,
I don't know.
Why? Is it just tradition? I feel like you could really maximize on space and have a much bigger house by knocking these walls down. Now that we've talked about a difference that confuses us about the UK, let's hop across the pond and talk about something that bugs the heck out of us in the States. So this difference, let's just call it stupid granite countertops. Most American kitchens seem to have what I like to call stupid granite countertops. The granite that I'm talking about has that shine. It's almost like it has little bits of silver in it.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Glitter.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you put a light on it and the counter glitters.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
You think it just looks maybe a little tacky or a little bit like it's supposed to look luxurious, but maybe it's just kind of...
Yes, that's exactly
it's an attempt to look posh. And it fails.
But we never saw those in the UK, which was a huge reprieve. We needed that. And so thank you, UK, for helping us recover from stupid granite countertops. Now it's your...
I don't have a granite countertop here. I've had granite countertops before, but what kind of countertops do you guys generally have in the UK? Is it like what I love and what, if I build my own house one day, I'm going to, I think I'd like to have kind of like the cutting board or the, what do you call it? Like a chef's block, like just a thick piece of wood on top and that you can just cut straight on. You can like use as a cutting board. I love that type of kitchen.
Your turn. What differences have you noticed between British and American homes? And is there anything about American homes in particular that really confuses you if you're not American? Drop those questions down in the comments and we will do our very best to answer those. And if you haven't already, do make sure that you...
All right. Well, that was awesome, guys. I thought they did a really good job at explaining some of these differences. I had no idea about a lot of this, actually. I learned a lot about British homes. I had no idea so many people in the UK lived in, what were they called? Terrace? No, terrace. Was it terrace? Yeah, terrace houses. I just call them attached houses, or townhouses, is what we really call them. But that's great. I think he said, what was it? I don't even remember where was that at. Where was that at? I think right here. So yeah, 24%. Only a quarter of you guys live in detached houses. That's surprising to me. I mean, I guess it's not when I really think about, if you live in London or Manchester or other decent sized cities, it makes sense that, they're maximizing space. So you're not going to have as many detached houses. But thinking about how much countryside you guys have, it just seems that a lot of you would live, more of you would live in detached houses. But that's interesting. I've never lived. No, I did. I lived one time. One time I've lived in what we call a townhouse or a duplex. Actually, a townhouse duplex is different. But anyway, one time I've lived in a connected house, which is a duplex, and yeah, it was okay. I didn't like the fact that you could literally hear the neighbor's dog barking in the middle of the night, stuff like that. That was annoying. That is definitely one of the benefits of a detached house. You still have to deal with, noisy neighbors and stuff if your yards are fairly close together. But generally speaking, you don't have to constantly be worried about their noise and stuff. Same issues you got to worry about when you live in apartments or flats, as you guys would say. I definitely prefer living in a detached house. But just trying to see some of this stuff here. This was also surprising. I knew the houses would be smaller, but 818 square feet is the average size house. Of course, that runs into another thing that's interesting is the fact that the people in the real estate agents don't generally show the size of the houses. That is really surprising to me because I can't imagine that because if I'm going to look for a place, I want to be able to check off places that are out of the question so I don't only have to go by and visit them. But I feel like if I was to, look for a place and then they don't show me the size of the house and stuff, I don't know, if it's going to be a decent enough size for what we need based off of, how big we need bedrooms and things like that. So that's really interesting. I could imagine that could be fairly frustrating because you go and you're like, oh, this place looks cool. And then you go check it out and you drive all the way. As soon as you get there, you're like, oh man, this place is so much smaller than I thought it was. So I can imagine that could be a little bit frustrating. But one thing I absolutely love is the fact the buildings and the houses are made of brick and stone much more often. Not to say no houses are made of wood in the UK, obviously, but as a whole, I feel like granted, I don't know what modern building practices are in the UK, so I don't really know how modern homes are built there. But all I know is in the US, if you go and move to one of these, subdivisions, they throw these things up so quickly and they're so shoddy. It would be surprising if in 50 years, half of those homes are standing. I mean, you'll go and see a subdivision start coming up and you'll see them build a house in like 3 days from scratch, 4 days in some cases. And that's not always, but I'm just saying, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but literally in a couple of weeks, the house is up and it's just a whole subdivision is up in a matter of just a couple of months, like hundreds of houses. And it's just like, really? I know these houses are shoddy built. You go look inside some of these places and you can just tell it's just cheap. And I wouldn't buy one of those new subdivision houses in America personally. They're way overpriced and generally just shoddy, in my opinion. I would prefer to get my own contractor and build a single home myself, But that's one thing I definitely like about the houses in the UK, though, is the brick and the stone. I think the rooms were for the most part the same. House construction. I I find that interesting that you guys don't really have porches, but I love the terrace. I love the beautiful gardens and the backyards and things like that. So I could get rid of a porch if I had a really cool backyard, one that was like had just awesome gardens and a little greenhouse maybe and things like that, to where I could, grow different stuff and have this like cool secluded place that was kind of my little oasis. I would prefer that over a porch. I also like porches though. But yeah, I think some of the stuff was stuff that's kind of like, yeah, I pretty much figured that was the case, but others was like, pretty surprising. The microwave, wouldn't need one. Dishwasher, I'd probably miss that. Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, guys, I thought this was an interesting list. This is cool. It gives me an idea of what to expect. When I come over, even when I come over for a visit, I'm probably going to get an Airbnb in different places, stuff like that. So it gives me a better idea of what I might be looking at. And generally speaking, most of these differences, not a big deal. Some of them I actually appreciate, and more than I do in the American stuff. And so all in all, I thought this was cool. Thank you for watching, guys. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments and suggestions about this video or other video ideas you think I might enjoy checking out. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow me on my journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Until next time, guys, peace.